High-starred athletes or developmental guys? Where should Boston College really put their focus? We'll jump into this and all things recruiting on today's recruiting wrap-up on Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by RunYourPool. March Madness is here, and RunYourPool has a better way to create your bracket. RunYourPool.com, the premier sports pool hosting service. Check them out. All right, I promised you guys we're going to start doing recruiting wrap-up Wednesdays, where I'm going to give you a segment or two dedicated to Boston College football recruiting and all the news and nuggets you're going to want to know. So for today's episode is going to be more of a discussion, because on Sunday or Saturday night, Boston College landed their committed quarterback, Jacoby Robinson, out of Henderson, Texas. And when he committed, I said it was a big deal. I got a lot of pushback online, and I totally get why. Because he has no offers, he has no star ranking, and he's very under-recruited, right? So many people are like, what happened to Boston College? Why are they going after these guys instead of the 4 stars or 3 stars with bigger offers? And so it raises a few questions, and I kind of want to talk about those 2 questions in our first couple segments. The first question is, when you're looking at a quarterback, you want to recruit that is overhyped. And that happens a lot. Yes, you can get lots of 4 stars, but how many 4 stars end up burning out? And the answer is quite a few, right? If you look at 4-star quarterbacks Boston College has landed, Peter Delaportis was kind of on the edge. I don't consider him a 4-star quarterback, though. He had 4 stars at one point, but, he is definitely not the typical 4-star quarterback. The last 4-star quarterback Boston College landed was Sam Johnson. And Sam Johnson never saw the field. And there was a bunch of reasons for it. I thought he'd eventually get there, but he was raw. And, he could go out there and get 4 stars because he plays, he could have played in high school where it wasn't all that challenging, and, he could do a few things right. Maybe he was quick. But look where he's at now. He's at Shippensburg University, and that is a Division II school. So, not all 4 stars are going to really develop into these huge things. What you need is a coach that you can trust. And I think that's where we need to stand as Boston College fans. Do you trust this staff to evaluate? Because that is what recruiting is all about. It's not just taking a guy because he's there, or taking a guy because he has the right height and weight. And Robinson has the right height and weight. He's 6'3", 220. He's a big dude, right? He's only a junior. It's those coaches, they've watched the game tape. They've watched the huddle films. They've watched highlights of this kid. Do you trust them to make the right assessment on this kid? Because if John McNulty, the new offensive coordinator, is watching him and going, Robinson has a few things. I mean, just watching it myself, some of his upper body stuff is a little wonky. But a guy like McNulty, who is an offensive, he's a quarterback's coach, can he fix that? Can he, is that something that's fixable? There's certain things that you do as an athlete that are fixable, and some that are so ingrained that are hard to break. McNulty could see that and go, okay, this kid doesn't have a ton of offers, but he has the fit that I want. He's the bigger kid. He's not like William Watson of Massachusetts, who I said earlier is 6'0", 185. You want the bigger quarterback in the system. He's got that. Does he have some positives? You watch the film. Watch Robinson throw. You can go find his huddle film anywhere. Kid's got a cannon for an arm. He threw, as Mitch said on Monday's show, he threw for a 55-yard throw in the air. That is something you can't teach. You can't teach. You can work on arm strength, but that's a gift, basically, right? So there's some stuff that you worry about, like his upper body and lower body don't match up. do you trust that this coaching staff can fix that? And if your answer is yes, then it doesn't matter what offers he has, because he has the skills to get you what you want out of your quarterback. He has the skills to develop into what you're hoping to be your franchise or school program quarterback. And I think that's where you need to be at, right? It's so easy to fall in love with star systems. You look at a team like Georgia or Alabama and you're like, holy moly, both of these schools are pulling in, 10 5-star recruits, and you got to put it in perspective. There's two games being played in football. There's the Blue Bloods and there's everybody else. And the everybody else's, they'll get their chances to win the ACC. They'll have their chances to get to a New Year's Six Bowl. But those Blue Bloods, they're playing at a whole other level. And if you're comparing your program to those Blue Bloods, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed, because Boston College, Wake Forest, Louisville, they're never going to be a Blue Blood. They're never, ever going to be a Blue Blood. It's just not going to happen. That's just not the way the program is set up. That's not the way the athletic departments are set up, and you're not going to change that. And I know it's depressing, but you got to set realistic expectations. So the best way to get the best results out of Boston College are getting guys that fit your system. And I think it could be guys that are 4-star. It could be guys that are not ranked. I mean, I don't need to tell you. You guys have all been Boston College fans for years. You remember Luke Kuechly had 2 offers out of school. Matt Ryan had 1 or 2. Mark Herzlich had 2. These guys were under-recruited, and they made a huge difference. But you also, just to be fair, you want a balance. You don't want all underdeveloped, developmental guys. You want guys also like Harold Landry, who was a 4-star. You want A.J. Dillon, who was a 4-star. Both those guys had tons of offers. Some of our offensive linemen, you look at the offensive line right now, Ozzie Trapillo, Kevin Pine, there's a bunch of Drew Kendall, There's a bunch of guys that are 4-stars. So I think for Boston College, it's a blend. And I don't think you should get disappointed when they bring in the developmental guys, because that's what a lot of the blood of this program are those developmental guys that are going to fill in that spot. So I think it's a conversation worth having, because I think you need to get your head wrapped around how this program really is filled. And, just also, if you just go for 4-stars or go for those elite guys, you're going to lose out, and then you're going to lose out on guys because you're so focused on those players. You're going to lose out on some of the middle crop that maybe have what you want that you would never even get out of 4-stars. Zay Flowers, he's a perfect example too. He had three offers, I think, out of high school. So I think there's a good balance for Boston College here. And, at quarterback, it doesn't matter. Do they have the skills to do that? And I think Boston College found one that does. And, they're starting to build depth, and that's all you can ask for. Next year, they're going to have Emmett Moorhead, Peter Delaportis, and Jacoby Robinson. I hope I didn't call him Jerome at the beginning. Jacoby Robinson. That's 3 quarterbacks. That's some depth right there. And that's exactly what you need to start to build, because as we saw with Steve Adazio, he left no depth in that quarterback room behind Phil Dracovic. Now, in a moment, I'm going to talk about 2 Boston College targets. One's a committed player and one is a target from basketball and football that you're going to want to know more about, who had huge weekends at different camps. But before we do that, let me tell you all about Run Your Pool. Run Your Pool is the place to go, with March Madness only being a few weeks away. That means you need to start thinking now about where you're going to be running your brackets this year. Are you going for the usual, or are you going for the best? We've done our homework here, and we're running brackets with RunYourPool.com. Along with standard brackets, Run Your Pool offers game types like Survivor or Pick X. And they're both really fun. They have options to edit scoring, and they offer way more intel to make your picks. All stuff you won't find at ESPN or CBS. If you got a business, Run Your Pool can help you take some of that madness and play along your employees, or even gain customers. Plus, they offer full white glove customer support, custom branding, and one of the easiest 3-minute setups you'll ever find. Clearly, we believe Run Your Pool because, like I said, we're running our brackets there ourselves. There's no truer test than that. If you want to play against us for a shot at a cash prize, join us at runyourpool.com/lockedon. And while you're there, create your own pool for your friends and family. Enter Pure Madness at checkout for $10 off your custom pool. All the rules and details will be available there. That's runyourpool.com/lockedon for your chance to win a cash prize. We look forward to seeing and beating you there. This is the time of the year where I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs yet? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of the best Built Bars with a great taste to it. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. Can you believe that? A protein-infused marshmallow. They're delicious, they're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, and they're a treat. They're covered in 100% chocolate. You gotta check out some of the flavors they have. Check this out. The yummy cinnamony churro, the coconut marshmallow, or my favorite, the banana cream pie. They are so good, and they're gonna be your favorite too. All Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate, and listen to the nutritional value of a Built Bar. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. You can't beat that. I have one every single day at 2:30. It gives me the energy I need to get through my end of my day work, giving me the energy to do the best I can with my kids at home. But when you head to Built.com, you got to check out some of the flavors they got. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It will be delicious, and it'll be good to you. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. This is Locked On Boston College. This is Recruiting Wrap-Up Wednesday, one of our new themed episodes. On Friday's show, I'm going to give you our listener mailbag. I almost called it viewer. Listener mailbag. We're going to talk all about the questions you have. Make sure to hit me up on Twitter at LockedOnBC. You can DM it to me. You can send it to me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC or email me at BostonCollege@si@gmail.com. Again, it's BostonCollegeSI@gmail.com. Thank you all who have been listening. We got a shout out in our weekly newsletter as one of the podcasts that had the best weeks in terms of growth. And I have to thank each and every one of you that have made listening to Locked On Boston College part of your daily routine and your first listen every morning. Thank you all. So let's jump back into recruiting. Now, I was talking about some of the players that you're going to want to know about that Boston College has offered or had committed. And I said 2 had big weekends. And the first one, you want to talk about guys that are exciting. DJ Braswell, a running back from Georgia with a Boston College offer, was named one of the top performers at Under Armour camp in Atlanta. So if you're not aware of the way the camp system works, Under Armour is kind of one of those big camp circuits throughout the country that they get regional guys that go in. It allows scouts from different teams to come and check them out, coaches to check them out. And then media also, from Rivals 247, SI, this was from SI, they get a chance to also do their kind of write-ups on these kids too. It gets them good evaluations, it gives them good exposure, and bumps them up. Now, Braswell got a lot of love. And what they said, John Garcia of SI.com, we've had him on our show before. He said he's a lengthy and speedy back at 5'11", who backs it up on the track with a 10.7 100-meter yard dash speed. Braswell ran by many linebackers on Sunday with relative ease. He finished with good hands, ball skills too, and what was a breakout performance for the Sandersonville, Washington County Star. Florida State and Boston College offers are in, and Alabama is beginning to show interest. Now, SI did a great job. They gave about 30 kids that they were looking at. It was really interesting because you look at it, and I had it sent to me because whenever they mention Boston College, I get it in my mailbox, and I was like, oh, BC's mentioned, because usually it's Alabama, Florida, Michigan, Auburn, Georgia on everything, and this one popped up, and I was like, wow. Now, would Boston College take him? It's interesting if you're thinking about Boston College recruiting, especially at the running back position. They've loaded up the last couple years. Now they had one in the class of 2021, Xavier Coleman, who's a redshirt freshman, practicing with the second team right now. I'd expect him to have a bigger year this year. I think he could be someone that you might want to watch for. But they also brought in 3 running backs in the class of 2022. They brought in CJ Klingscales, one of my favorite names out there out of Georgia, Alex Broom, and Cam Barfield. Now, Broom and Barfield had enormous seasons. They're going to stay at, I imagine they're going to stay at running back. Klingscales could be in for a positional change. I'm not sure how they're going to view him. But after having 3 running backs in that class, they already have one for the class of 23. They have Dontrell Jones out of Catholic Memorial, a 4-star running back out of Massachusetts. So would they add another one here? I mean, the depth chart is getting pretty stacked at running back. Of course, with as I said, those 3 running backs from last year, you move one, you'll have the room to do it. But if you are in with a running back like Braswell, who is electric, and obviously if he's getting attention from Alabama already, his recruiting is going to skyrocket. You take him. You have to. I mean, like, really, you have to take him. But I get the sense that maybe, BC may not be the team that they go for, but it's still an interesting story. And we'll have full coverage on bcbulletin.com and on our recruiting wrap-up of any of these camps where Boston College kids are starting to be mentioned. Now we're going to turn the leaf over to basketball recruiting. And first, quick note, Fred Payne was a new offer for the class of 2023. He is a 6'0 point guard from Kansas. He's a 2-star. He's got a lot of lower offers, so be interesting to see if BC continues to push on him. But he was a new offer that was put out this week. But Armani Mighty, one of my favorite Boston College sports names of all time, who is coming to BC next season. He's a 6'11 center from Canada. He competed in the Big Shots 3rd Annual Prep Nationals. And this was an article written by On3, which is another recruiting site. It says the tournament brought 96 teams from around the country and Canada to compete in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Truly, the only event of its kind was a buffet of talent for college coaches and scouts to take in. Below are the awards from the 3-day event. So they gave out some MVP awards and Defensive Player of the Year or the tournament. And 2 BC players, actually, I didn't even notice this until I just went to go read the thing on Mighty. Fred Payne was on this group too. Armani Mighty was listed as a second-team award winner for that tournament. Now, Armani Mighty had 10 points a game. I saw that the On3 guys were like, wow, BC's got a steal here. You add in if one service is already saying this about Mighty, you have Donald Hand and Prince Saligby, who the other services are all over for 4 stars. You now have 3 guys that are getting national press in next year's recruiting class. And you're going to need Armani Mighty next year because you're losing James Karnick, and I don't think James Vanderbond's going to be the answer. Just the way that they've used him, he's on his 2nd year, and he's the 3rd guy off the bench. I imagine Mighty might have more of that chance to be the 2nd center behind Quentin Post next year. So it's interesting to see him get all this press as well. So you got 3 guys, and then Chaz Kelly, I don't sleep on him either. There was some really interesting highlight reels of him. Boston College basketball recruiting hit a home run in class of 2022. They had an absolute home run. So I think Earl Grant is building something, and you got to be excited where that class is going, given that you have, DeMar Langford and Quentin Post and Jaden Zachary all coming back next year and getting another year under their belt. It's going to be an exciting year, and I think it's going to be an exciting program development for Boston College. And as I just said, Fred Payne, the guy I didn't even see that this was connected, was also on the 2nd team with Armani Mighty. So I'm assuming Boston College was scouting Mighty at that tournament and saw some of this Fred Payne too and was like, whoa, we got to check this guy out. So maybe he is a little bit more heading up the recruiting ranks. So interesting little comment there. Now, in our final segment, we're going to talk about everything BC sports related in terms of news from the last couple days. Get into all of that and more in just a moment. But thanks again for making Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. Make sure to check out the Locked On Bracket Breakdown March 14th right here on the Locked On Boston College podcast feed and YouTube channel. College basketball experts Chris Gordy, Andy Patton, and betting expert Lee Sterling give you in-depth breakdowns on every matchup. Now let's talk about our friends over at RockAuto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for you to go to your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to RockAuto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save 30, 50, or even 100% more when you go to RockAuto.com. And they're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need, including brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, or even new carpet. So go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solutions for your auto parts needs. And when you head on over, make sure to write Locked On in their How'd You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection of reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. Just a quick little side note here. We're going to talk about news. Just a shout out to a couple Boston College staffers that are moving on to different positions that many of you know. Jason Baum, who has been the sports information director, assistant, part of the associate ADs, is got a new position. He didn't explain what it is, but he's leaving Boston. He said it on his Twitter. Jason has been invaluable to this podcast and to my work, and I want to thank him on this podcast for all the help that he's given. He's a lot of the stuff that you see on Twitter and the way that they shaped this program has done by Jason and his staff. So kudos to him. Whoever gets him, and I don't know what his position is going to be yet. He hasn't announced it. They got a real steal there because he was a great asset to Boston College. And then also, for those of you who haven't seen, Joe Sullivan, who many of you know as like the director of player personnel, or if you're watching recruiting news, he's the guy with all the Rick Ross gifs that would always tease out when there was a new commitment. He's moved on to a new position in the program. He is doing athletic development in terms of like financial stuff. So he's still with BC, but I don't think you'll see as much of the Rick Ross stuff, which is kind of a bummer. Again, he's a great guy and a great source to, resource to our show. So good luck to him. I think he's another tremendous Boston College employee. So just a shout out there. Now, talking about BC football, over the second practice of the spring camp, Boston College had some visitors as Steve Belichick, son of New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick, and linebackers coach Gerard Mayo were on campus to check out BC's practice. Now, Jeff Hafley used that as a great opportunity to talk about the connection between Boston College and pro teams in the area, but it's also good to see that, like, I'm sure those guys were there, on defense to kind of scout out some of BC's players. And that's always a good thing. You want to see, the local kids stay local. So my thought always goes to, they're both defensive guys. Were they there to watch Jaden Woodby, Josh DeBerry, Marcus Valdez, Elijah Jones? Those are the names I would watch. I would think they would be watching for, but it's good exposure. And it gets those New England Patriots fans to watch because they're obviously they're aware of that. So it's a good thing. And you'll see BC constantly, when it was during the pandemic, they were always doing it via Zoom, but they're trying to get connections between the community and BC or the Alumni Association. I mean, they had Mark Herzlich talk. I think they've had Damian Woody, Will Blackman, things like that. They've had all these guys, chatting with BC players. So good thing for them. And Boston College basketball wraps up their home set schedule on today against Miami at 9 o'clock start, which always makes me shudder because I got to stay up and then record after that. But BC has a tough one. This is one of their toughest games that they played in a while. Miami is playing for a double bye. If they win this game, they get a double bye in the ACC championship tournament at 20-9. They need this win. I mean, Miami is going to need this win to get into the tournament. They're going to, solidify their spot. BC could play the spoiler here, though. It should be a good game. And BC has beaten them. They beat them last year, 84-62. Tomorrow's show, we'll recap the Miami game, get into every news and detail of BC football that you're going to want to know about. Check all that out. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.